Under the luminous blaze of arena lights, the air thickened with anticipation as two very different men prepared to collide in a pivotal moment for the light heavyweight division. Fans murmured, commentators leaned forward, and somewhere deep in the tunnels, footsteps echoed like war drums approaching the battlefield. Dmitry Bivol emerged first, a calm, perfectly measured force, walking with the assurance of a fighter who'd spent his entire life crafting a style built on balance, precision, and cold efficiency. The reigning WBA interim light heavyweight champion carried no theatrics, no bravado, just the demeanor of a man who already saw the ending long before the first bell rang. Then came Samuel, the main event Clarkson, a fighter forged in the rough corners of American gyms, a man who had been knocked down, counted out, and yet always returned. Defiant and hungry, ranked number 13, Clarkson didn't walk toward the ring as an underdog. He walked like a man stepping into destiny. Determined to shatter the aura surrounding the undefeated Russian, the crowd buzzed with the electricity of two contrasting stories converging: the cold technician versus the battle-tested warrior. When they finally stood face to face, gloves raised, eyes locked, the referee's commands cut through the noise. Simple words, yet heavy with consequence. Obey my commands at all times. Protect yourself at all times. Touch gloves. A tap, a step back, a heartbeat of silence. And then, the bell. Like the cracking of a storm, round one began not with caution, but with immediate violence. Bivol launched a sharp, piston-like right hand that split through Clarkson's guard with surgical accuracy, sending a ripple through the arena. It was the first hint that tonight would not be a feel-out process. Tonight, Dmitry Bivol came to make a statement, and Clarkson, whether ready or not, would be the man forced to survive it. The first minute of the opening round became a brutal revelation, as Bivol's right hand repeatedly crashed through Clarkson's defenses with eerie consistency. Each shot was delivered with the precision of a sniper and the weight of a sledgehammer, freezing Clarkson in place and forcing him backward toward the ropes. Clarkson tried stepping out, but Bivol cut the distance instantly, pivoting with pristine balance, keeping his shoulders squared and his feet perfectly planted, everything about him screaming control. The crowd roared as another right hand landed flush, staggering Clarkson's legs and sending him reeling into the ropes, where the champion unleashed a flurry of crisp, punishing combinations. Clarkson, damaged and disoriented, failed to clinch or tie up. Instead, he absorbed the storm with stubborn defiance. A devastating three-punch sequence ended with the American collapsing to the canvas, and the referee's count began, each number echoing through the arena like a tolling bell. Clarkson rose at 7, eyes cloudy but resolve unbroken, though everyone watching felt the momentum tilting dangerously out of reach. Bivol, economical and icy, refused to waste punches, picking his moments, stepping in only when the openings were undeniable. Clarkson's corner shouted for movement, begged him to survive, but Bivol's accuracy was suffocating, each jab a needle threading its way toward the next destructive right. When the bell finally sounded, Clarkson staggered back to his corner, legs weak, face beginning to swell, breathing heavy, but heart still beating with the fury of a man who refused surrender. Round one wasn't a battle, it was a warning, a glimpse of what Bivol truly was, a poised, relentless machine, built not for chaos, but for dismantling opponents, piece by piece. As round two began, Clarkson attempted to follow his corner's desperate instructions: move, create distance, buy time. But Bivol was already stalking him with a predator's patience. The Russian champion jabbed not to score points, but to measure space, to read Clarkson's rhythm, to set traps only he could see unfolding. Each touch of the jab snapped Clarkson's head back just slightly, opening the lane for the inevitable right hand. And every time that right hand landed, the crowd murmured with equal parts admiration and concern. Bivol wasn't recklessly aggressive. He was disturbingly efficient, stepping in and out of range with a mastery far beyond his 9 professional fights. Clarkson tried circling, tried feinting, even stepped on Bivol's foot in hopes of disrupting the champion's balance. But Bivol remained unshaken, gliding effortlessly across the canvas like he'd lived there all his life. Clarkson's face began to puff, his guard loosening as fatigue and pain crept into his movements. A particularly sharp right sent him stumbling backward again, though he stayed on his feet through nothing but stubborn will. The commentators began noting Bivol's calmness, his balance, the way every punch carried intent. On the other side, Clarkson was fading, unable to mount any significant offense, unable to earn Bivol's respect with his own shots. By the time the round neared its end, Clarkson had survived, but barely. He walked back to his corner breathing heavily, mouth open, sweat pouring down, while Bivol sat calmly, eyes unblinking, seemingly untouched. The storm wasn't slowing, it was gathering power. The third round began as a continuation of the same painful lesson. Clarkson simply had no answer. Bivol controlled range with frightening mastery, stepping forward only when he wanted to, stepping out when Clarkson attempted anything in return. The challenger's punches floated harmlessly, lacking snap, lacking conviction, while Bivol's replies were sharp, direct, and punishing. Clarkson's face began swelling around the cheekbones and eyes, discoloration spreading like bruised ink beneath the skin. Bivol's jab dictated the geography of the ring. Touch to the head, touch to the body, touch to set the track for the right hand that repeatedly found its mark. Clarkson's guard lifted too high, his elbows flaring open, allowing Bivol's body shots to sink in with thudding force. The Russian's punches weren't wild, they were straight, disciplined, economical. Every time Clarkson tried pressing forward, Bivol met him with a stiff jab or a piercing right, sending him backward again and again into the ropes. The commentators spoke of Clarkson's heart, how he'd been stopped only once before, how he always found a way to survive. But tonight, against this level of precision, heart alone wasn't enough. Midway through the round, 2 crisp jabs followed by a drilling right nearly took Clarkson off his feet again. The crowd groaned at every impact. Clarkson threw a few return shots, his best of the fight, but when they landed, Bivol didn't blink. He simply answered with more firepower, more accuracy, more control. When the round ended, Clarkson looked like a man trapped inside a nightmare he couldn't escape, while Bivol walked calmly back to his corner, unbothered, untouched, and in complete command. Round 4 opened with a slow-motion sense of inevitability. Clarkson came out trying to gather courage, hands high, attempting to circle, but his movements were lethargic, his legs dulled by punishment, his confidence badly shaken. Bivol, sensing the finish, didn't rush. He continued dissecting his opponent with expert precision, jab to measure, right hand to punish, body shots to drain whatever remained of Clarkson's resolve. Midway through the round, a clean right hand, timed perfectly as Clarkson stepped forward, sent the American crashing to the canvas. The referee began the count, but everyone watching felt the shift. Clarkson didn't just fall, he folded. He rose slowly, courage forcing his body upright even as pain begged him to stay down. The referee allowed the fight to continue, but only for a moment. Bivol stepped forward, unleashed another surgical right hand, and Clarkson's legs betrayed him again. This time, the referee had seen enough. Harvey Dock waved it off at 1 minute and 40 seconds of round 4, ending the punishment and declaring the inevitable. A technical knockout victory for Dmitry Bivol, who remained undefeated and solidified himself as a rising force in the division. Bivol lifted his gloves calmly, almost modestly, as if the triumph were simply another step in a much larger journey. Clarkson, brave to the final moment, stood with disappointment but undeniable heart. A warrior who refused to quit even as the storm overwhelmed him. And so the night closed, with the story of a young champion ascending, not through chaos, not through desperation, but through pure, disciplined, masterful control. Dmitry Bivol had arrived, announcing to the world that precision could be as devastating as power, and sometimes far more frightening.